Captain Lee Sung looked out from the bridge of his small ship, the New Soul. The stars looked different here, at the edge of space that humans had never seen before. His crew was quiet, watching their instruments carefully. "Sir, something big is coming," said Parkman from her position at the communications desk. She was young but smart, one of Earth's best officers. Her hands moved quickly over controls as warnings flashed on her screen. The space in front of them suddenly twisted and changed. A massive ship appeared, so big that it made their vessel look like a tiny bug next to a whale. The alien ship was covered in shiny metal that reflected the starlight. Strange symbols glowed along its sides. "That thing is huge," whispered Kim Jae from the weapons station. He had fought in 3 wars back on Earth, but he had never seen anything like this. His voice shook a little. Lee Sung stood up straight. He had been a soldier for 30 years. He had seen battle on Mars, fought pirates in the asteroid belt, and led missions to distant worlds. But this was different. This was first contact with an alien race, and they did not look friendly. "All crew stay calm," he said into his microphone. "Remember your training. We represent all of humanity today." The alien ship moved closer. It was at least 10 times bigger than any human warship. Weapons ports open along its hull, like the eyes of some giant beast. The new soul shields automatically came online, but everyone knew they would not stop whatever those alien guns could fire. "Incoming message, Captain," Parkman reported. Her voice was steady now, the way good soldiers always sounded when things got dangerous. Put on the main screen. The holographic display lit up with the image of something that made several crew members step back. The alien was tall, maybe 8 feet, with golden scales that covered its body like armor. Its eyes were cold and yellow, like a snake's. When it smiled, rows of sharp teeth showed. "I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire," the creature said. Its voice was deep and harsh, like metal scraping against stone. "You primitive mammals have entered our territory. You will surrender your ship and prepare to serve the Empire, or we will destroy you." Behind the alien, Lee Sung could see other creatures moving around what looked like the bridge of their ship. They all looked confident, like they had done this many times before. Their weapons were ready. Their movements showed no fear. Lee Sung walked forward until he was right in front of the camera. He looked directly at the alien admiral. Around him, his crew waited to see what their captain would do. "Admiral Kethvar," Lee Sung said calmly, "I am Captain Lee Sung of the Human Space Force. You have made a mistake coming here." The alien laughed. The sound was terrible, like breaking glass mixed with the roar of some angry beast. "A mistake? Your tiny ship against our mighty fleet? You are nothing. Your entire species is nothing. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We have crushed races far stronger than yours." "That may be true," Lee Sung replied. His voice did not change. He sounded like he was discussing the weather. "But you have never faced humans before. This is your only warning. Run." The alien's laughter stopped. Its yellow eyes narrowed as it stared at the human captain. Around the bridge of the New Soul, the crew held their breath. They knew their captain was either very brave or very crazy. "You dare threaten the Zephyrian Empire?" Admiral Kethvar hissed. His scales seemed to shine brighter with anger. "With one small ship, we who rule half the galaxy." "I am not threatening you," Lee Sung said quietly. "I am warning you. There is a difference." Kim Jae moved his hand closer to the weapons controls. Parkman started recording everything, knowing that if they died here, at least Earth would have a record of what happened. The rest of the crew prepared for battle, even though they all knew it would probably be their last. The alien admiral leaned forward, his terrible face filling the screen. "You will regret your words. Human, when we are finished with your species, you will beg for the mercy of slavery." Lee Sung shook his head slowly. "You do not understand. We have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We have fought each other, learned every trick, every strategy. We know how to win and we know how to lose. But most importantly, we know how to make our enemies pay for their victories." The alien was quiet for a moment. Something in the human's voice seemed to make him think. "Your choice, Admiral," Lee Sung said. "This is the only warning you will get. Next time we meet, it will be different." He nodded to Parkman, who cut the transmission. The alien ship hung in space for several long minutes. Then, slowly, it turned and disappeared back into hyperspace. The bridge was silent. Finally, Kim Jae spoke. "Sir, do you think they will listen?" Lee Sung looked out at the stars. "No, Lieutenant, they will not. They are too proud, too sure of their power. But we gave them a chance. And if they come back, then they will learn what it means to fight humans." 3 months had passed since Admiral Kethvar met the strange human captain. The alien commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the burning planet below. The human colony on Kepler, 442b, was finally his, but something felt wrong. Report, he ordered his assistant, Subcommander Vextai. The younger alien scales were darker than his commander's, and he looked nervous. "The colony is ours, Admiral, but our losses were much higher than expected." Vextai looked at his data pad with confusion. "We lost 47 ships and over 3,000 soldiers." Kethvar's eyes narrowed. "For one small mining colony? That is impossible. The humans fought differently than any species we have conquered before," Vextai explained. "They turned their mining equipment into weapons. They used cargo ships like missiles, ramming them into our vessels. And they never surrendered, even when defeat was certain." Down on the planet, the battle had been unlike anything the Zephyrians had ever experienced. Colonel Choi Hyun had commanded only 300 human civilians, mostly miners and their families. But they had fought like professional soldiers. The humans had welded metal plates to their mining vehicles, turning them into tanks. They had modified their industrial lasers to cut through alien armor. When their ammunition ran low, they threw rocks and metal scraps with deadly accuracy. "Tell me about their leader," Kethvar demanded. Vextai checked his notes. "Colonel Choi Hyun. He was a former Earth military officer who came here to mine rare metals. When we attacked, he organized a defense from the main facility. The battle for the mining station had lasted 6 hours. The humans had turned every building into a fortress. They dug tunnels between structures so they could move without being seen. They set traps using their mining explosives that destroyed entire squads of alien soldiers. When the Zephyrians finally broke through the outer defenses, they found more surprises waiting. The humans had rigged their own power generators to explode if the aliens got too close. They had programmed their construction robots to attack anyone who was not human. How did their leader die?" Kethvar asked. "He was in the final bunker with 12 other humans. Our forces surrounded them completely. There was no escape." Vextai paused, remembering the scene. "When we broke down the door, we found him still firing a weapon he had built from spare parts. He was wounded, bleeding, but he smiled at us." The alien commander's scales darkened with anger. No conquered species had ever smiled at Zephyrian soldiers. They begged, they cried, they surrendered. They did not smile. "What happened then?" He said something in his language. Our translators picked up only one word: remember. Then he activated the facility's fusion reactor. The explosion had destroyed the entire complex and killed 200 more Zephyrian soldiers. But worse than the deaths was what it meant. The human had chosen to die rather than be captured. He had destroyed his own home rather than let the aliens use it. The other humans did the same thing throughout the colony. Vextai continued. They destroyed their own equipment, their own buildings, even their own food supplies. They left us nothing useful. This was completely new to the Zephyrians. Every other species they had conquered had tried to preserve their lives and their property. They surrendered quickly and hoped for mercy. The humans seemed to prefer death to defeat. "What about the mining operation?" Kethvar asked. "Gone. They somehow damaged the mining equipment so badly that it will take months to repair. They even collapsed some of the mine tunnels." The Admiral walked to the large window that showed the planet below. Smoke still rose from dozens of burning sites. His mighty fleet had taken this small world, but it felt more like a defeat than a victory. "Sir, there is something else," Vextai said quietly. "Before the final battle, the humans sent a message to their home world. Our intelligence officers intercepted it." "What did it say?" "It was a detailed report of our weapons, our tactics, our ship designs. They were not asking for help. They were giving information to other humans, so they could fight us better. Kethvar felt a strange emotion he had rarely experienced in his long military career. It was something like respect, mixed with worry. These humans had studied his forces even while they were dying. They had been thinking about the next battle, instead of trying to save themselves. "Admiral, what are your orders for the next assault?" Vextai asked. The older alien thought for a long moment. The human captain's warning echoed in his memory. "You have never faced humans before. Run." At the time, it had seemed like the foolish boast of a weak species. Now he was not so sure. "Double our forces for the next attack," he finally ordered. "These humans simply need a stronger lesson. Send word to the Fourth Fleet. Tell them to prepare for extended combat operations." As his orders were carried out, Kethvar continued to stare at the burning planet. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a small voice wondered if he was making a terrible mistake. But he pushed that thought away. The Zephyrian Empire had never lost a war. They would not start now. The humans had fought well, but they were still just one small species against the might of the Galactic Empire. Soon they would learn their place, just like all the others. But deep down, Admiral Kethvar could not forget Colonel Choi Hyun's smile. Captain Yoon Deun floated in the cold darkness of space, her damaged suit slowly losing power. Around her, pieces of metal and debris drifted silently where the great battle had happened just hours before. Her ship, the Busan's Pride, was gone. So was most of the Zephyrian 7th Fleet. Through her helmet radio, she could hear the faint voice of Admiral Park Tae-woo speaking from the human command ship that was still hidden in the asteroid field nearby. "All units, this is command. Pattern Omega is now in effect. They wanted a war with us. Let us give them one they will never forget." Yoon Do-eun smiled inside her helmet. Even though she knew she was probably going to die out here, her ship's final attack had worked perfectly. The Zephyrian flagship was broken in half, its crew dead. The aliens had learned something important today about fighting humans. 6 months had passed since the first colony battle, and everything had changed. The Zephyrians had brought bigger fleets, more soldiers, better weapons. But the humans had changed too. They no longer tried to defend fixed positions like normal armies. Instead, they had become something the aliens had never faced before. Lieutenant Han Soo-jin crept through the dark corridors of the Zephyrian supply station on Europa 7. Her team of 12 soldiers moved like shadows, their black uniforms making them nearly invisible. They had been inside the alien base for 2 days, learning its secrets. "Target room ahead," whispered Sergeant Kim Min-ho through the comm system. He was the team's explosives expert, trained in the old guerrilla tactics that humans had used in wars on Earth centuries ago. The supply station stored food, ammunition, and fuel for 3 Zephyrian battle fleets. In 30 minutes, it would all be destroyed. But first, Han Soo-jin's team would steal everything they could learn about alien technology. This was the new human way of fighting. They called it asymmetric warfare, though the aliens did not understand the term. Human ships no longer met Zephyrian fleets in open battle. Instead, they struck from hiding places in asteroid fields, gas clouds, and the dark spaces between stars. Admiral Kethvar stood on his flagship's bridge, staring at a tactical display that showed nothing but bad news. Red markers indicated destroyed supply depots, missing patrol ships, and compromised communication relays. In the past 3 months, his forces had lost more ships to these human ghost attacks than they had lost in 50 years of conquering other species. "Sir, we have another report," said his communications officer, a young alien whose scales had turned pale with stress. "The supply convoy to Sector 12 has disappeared. All 15 ships gone without a trace." The Admiral's claws scraped against the metal railing. How is this possible? They were escorted by 2 heavy cruisers. The escort ship sent a final message before contact was lost. They reported human ships appearing from what seemed like empty space, attacking, then vanishing again before our reinforcements could arrive. Major Lim Jiho watched the alien convoy through his ship sensors. His small fleet of human raiders had been waiting in the shadow of a dead moon for 6 hours. The Zephyrians were predictable, always using the same travel routes. always thinking their superior numbers made them safe. "All ships, begin attack pattern Delta," he ordered quietly. "Remember, we hit fast and disappear. Do not try to fight their big ships directly." The human attack came from 3 directions at once. Small, fast ships launched missiles and energy weapons, then immediately changed course. The alien escorts tried to respond, but the humans were already moving to new positions. Within minutes, the convoy was destroyed. The human ships collected what supplies they could carry, then jumped to hyperspace before enemy reinforcements arrived. It was the same pattern they had used dozens of times. Back on his flagship, Admiral Kethvar received reports that made his situation clear. The humans were not fighting like any species he had ever encountered. They did not try to hold territory or protect their civilians in traditional ways. Instead, they had spread out across the galaxy like some kind of infection, appearing wherever his forces were weakest. "Admiral, our intelligence division has completed their analysis of human tactics," reported his chief strategist, an old alien with silver scales who had planned victories against 30 different species. What did they learn? The humans appear to have been fighting wars among themselves for their entire recorded history. They have perfected techniques that we have never encountered because no civilized species would use them. Kethvar's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "They sacrifice their own positions to deny resources to enemies. They use suicide attacks as standard tactics. They study our methods and adapt faster than our strategists believe possible. And most disturbing of all, they seem to consider warfare a natural state of existence." On the planet Kepler, 186F, Commander Co. Min-ho was teaching a group of alien civilians how to build improvised weapons. These were not humans, but members of species that the Zephyrian Empire had conquered years ago. The human resistance had inspired them to fight back. "The key is to make every attack cost them more than they gain," he explained to his mixed group of students. Some had tentacles, others had fur or scales, but all of them had the same look in their eyes that humans got when they were ready to fight. His grandmother had taught him these same lessons when he was young, telling him stories about Earth's ancient wars. Now he passed that knowledge to aliens who had almost forgotten how to resist. The rebellion was spreading. On 14 different worlds, species that had been quiet slaves for generations suddenly remembered their anger. The humans had shown them that the mighty Zephyrian Empire could be hurt, could be made to bleed. Admiral Kethvar read the reports of uprisings and sabotage with growing dread. The humans had done something worse than simply refusing to surrender. They had reminded the galaxy how to fight back. The secret meeting took place deep underground on Proxima Station, a mining world that the Zephyrian Empire had controlled for over 200 years. In the old tunnels where slaves had once dug precious metals, representatives from 6 different alien species gathered around a small holographic projector. The device showed grainy footage of a space battle that had happened just 3 days ago. Human ships, outnumbered 5-1, had somehow destroyed an entire Zephyrian battle group. The recording was shaky, taken by a hidden camera on a nearby asteroid mining platform. "They are actually winning," whispered Kextai, the Altarian delegate. His tentacles quivered with excitement as he watched human fighters dart between massive alien warships like angry insects. "Look at how they move. They fight like they have no fear." On the screen, Commander Lim Jo's flagship rammed directly into a Zephyrian dreadnought. The explosion lit up space for several seconds. When the light faded, both ships were gone, but the human had taken 3,000 alien soldiers with him. For Earth had been his final transmission, broadcast on all frequencies so everyone could hear. The elderly Centauran refugee, whose blue fur had turned gray during 50 years of slavery, leaned forward to get a better look. "This reminds me of the old stories my grandfather told me. Before the Empire broke our spirits, my people also knew such fury." "The humans are different," said another voice from the shadows. This was a Draxian, one of the first species the Empire had conquered. They had been enslaved so long that most had forgotten their original names. They do not fight to survive. They fight to win. Major Co. Min-ho had been on Proxima Station for 2 weeks, teaching guerrilla warfare to anyone brave enough to learn. He worked in secret, moving between the slave quarters at night, showing workers how to turn their tools into weapons. The key is to make them afraid, he explained to a small group gathered in an abandoned storage room. When they patrol your sectors, they should worry that they might not come back. When they sleep in their barracks, they should wonder if the building will explode. His great-grandmother had fought in the resistance movements on old Earth, back when humans still fought each other instead of alien invaders. Those lessons lived on in him, passed down through generations of soldiers who understood that freedom always came with a price. But Major, asked a young Altarian whose tentacles had been shortened by years of hard labor, what if they punish innocent people for our attacks? C.O. Minho's face grew hard. They already punish innocent people. That is what slavery is. The only question is whether you die on your knees or standing up. The alien workers looked at each other with expressions that their masters had not seen in decades. It was the look of people who were starting to remember what hope felt like. On distant battlefields throughout the galaxy, the impossible was happening. Species that had surrendered without a fight generations ago were suddenly picking up weapons again. The Zephyrian Empire, which had ruled through fear and overwhelming force, found itself dealing with something it had never faced before: rebellion. Admiral Ketvar stood in his command center, looking at tactical displays that showed red warning markers on 47 different worlds. Each marker represented an uprising, a sabotage attack, or a communication breakdown in what had once been the Empire's most secure territories. How is this possible? He demanded of his intelligence officers. These species have been pacified for centuries. They have no military experience, no weapons, no organization. Subcommander Vextai consulted his data pad with shaking hands. Sir, our investigations show that humans have been infiltrating our controlled territory for months. They are teaching primitive guerrilla tactics to slave populations. Impossible. Our security is perfect. Apparently not, Admiral. The humans seem to specialize in unconventional warfare. They do not attack our military bases directly. Instead, they teach others to fight us from within. The reports were getting worse every day. On Industrial World Gamma 7, the entire worker population had gone on strike and barricaded themselves in the factories. On Agricultural Planet Delta 3, mysterious explosions had destroyed half the food processing plants. On Communication Hub Alpha 12, someone had managed to broadcast human resistance propaganda to 17 different star systems. Lieutenant Colonel Park Eugene crouched behind a pile of rubble on the contested world of New Sparta, where 3 different alien species were fighting alongside her human special forces unit. The battle had been going on for 6 hours, and the Zephyrian garrison was finally starting to retreat. All units, press the attack, she ordered through her comm system. Do not let them regroup. Beside her, a Draxian freedom fighter who called himself the Hammer fired his improvised weapon at the fleeing aliens. 3 months ago, he had been a factory worker who had never held a gun. Now he fought with the skill and fury of a professional soldier. Major Park, he said in broken human language, my people want to thank you for showing us how to be strong again. She nodded, but kept her eyes on the battlefield. Do not thank me yet. Thank me when your world is free. The victory on New Sparta was small, just one garrison on one unimportant planet. But the news spread through underground communication networks faster than the Empire could stop it. Within days, every slave in the galaxy had heard the story. The humans had kept their promise. They were not like other species who had submitted quietly to alien rule. They fought as if war was in their blood, because it was. And now they were teaching others to fight the same way. Back on his flagship, Admiral Ketvar received the final report of the day. 23 more worlds had reported civil disturbances. The Empire's perfect order was cracking, and it was all because one human captain had refused to surrender. He remembered that first warning. You have never faced us before. Run. Now, he was beginning to understand what it meant. The final battle began at dawn over Zephyria Prime, the home world of the Empire that had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. Admiral Idahai stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Inchan's Revenge, watching as hundreds of ships moved into attack positions around the heavily defended planet. Her fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen before. Human warships flew alongside vessels from dozens of alien species that had once been slaves. Former enemies now fought as brothers, united by their hatred of the empire that had oppressed them all. "Admiral, all ships report ready for battle," said Commander Kim Tae-sung from his position at the tactical station. He was young, the son of a miner who had died in the first colony attack 3 years ago. Now he commanded the guns that would destroy the Empire's last stronghold. Lee Dahai looked out at the massive orbital defense platforms that surrounded Zephyria Prime. Each one was larger than a human city, armed with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. But she was not afraid. She was the daughter of Captain Lee Sung, the man who had given the Empire its first and only warning. "All ships, this is Admiral Lee." She broadcast on all frequencies, her voice carrying to every human and alien warrior in her fleet. "Today we finish what they started. Remember Captain Lee Sung's warning 3 years ago. They should have run when they had the chance." The space battle that followed shook the very foundations of the galaxy. Human ships threw themselves at the alien defenses with calculated fury, their crews singing old Earth war songs as they fought. Meanwhile, their alien allies struck with tactics they had learned from human teachers, turning the Empire's own strategies against them. Colonel Bei Jun Seo led the assault on the Imperial Palace, his Marines fighting room by room through corridors that had never known defeat. The Zephyrian Royal Guards were professional soldiers, but they had spent centuries fighting enemies who surrendered quickly. They were not prepared for humans who considered death in battle an honor. "Third floor secured," he reported through his comm system as his troops cleared another section of the palace. Around him, alien civilians cowered in corners, unable to understand how their mighty empire could be falling. Deep in the palace, Emperor Zethlar the Magnificent sat on his golden throne, surrounded by the last of his personal guards. He was old, his scales dull with age, and he had ruled for over 2 centuries. Never in his long life had he imagined that primitive mammals from a distant world could threaten his power. "Your Majesty," gasped his aide, "the humans have breached the inner chambers. They will be here soon." The Emperor closed his ancient eyes. "How many ships do we have left?" "Less than 50, Majesty. The defense platforms are all destroyed. Admiral Kethvar, request permission to surrender." Surrender. The word tasted like poison to the old ruler. The Zephyrian Empire did not surrender. It had never surrendered in 1,000 years of conquest. But as he listened to the sound of human weapons getting closer, he realized that some things had to end. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his fleet die around him. Human and alien ships worked together with perfect coordination, as if they had been fighting his ally for decades instead of months. His tactical display showed nothing but red markers indicating destroyed Zephyrian vessels. The human admiral's ship approached his through the wreckage of the great battle. Kethvar could see the name painted on his hull in both human and alien languages, Inchan's Revenge. It was scarred from many battles, its armor plates showing the marks of weapons fire. "Admiral Kethvar," came a voice over the communication system. "This is Admiral Lee Dahai of the Human Liberation Fleet. You are ordered to surrender immediately." The alien commander looked around his bridge. His officers stared at him with defeat in their eyes. Outside the windows, the burning remains of his fleet drifted in space like metal tombstones. "Aye, we surrender," he said quietly. The words felt strange coming from his mouth. In his long military career, he had heard them from countless other species, but never thought he would speak them himself. When Admiral Lee Dahai came aboard his ship an hour later, Kethvar was surprised to see that she looked much like the first human captain he had met 3 years ago. She had the same calm expression, the same steady eyes that showed no hatred despite everything that had happened. "Your species warned us," he said as his crew laid down their weapons around him. "That first captain, Lee Sung, he tried to tell us what would happen." "Lee Sung was my father," she replied simply. "He believed in giving enemies one chance to walk away. You chose not to take it." The alien admiral nodded slowly. "We thought you were weak because you were small. We thought your warning was just empty words from a frightened primitive. We tried to tell you," Lee Dahai said. "We are not like other species you have conquered. We have been fighting wars for thousands of years, learning every lesson that blood and death could teach. We know how to lose, but we also know how to win. Most importantly, we know how to make our enemies pay for their victories. As the Empire's flags came down on worlds across the galaxy, the story spread through freed slave camps and liberation celebrations. The humans had meant exactly what they said when they first arrived at the edge of Zephyrian space. They were unlike anything the Empire had faced before. They were a species that had turned warfare into an art form that fought not just with weapons but with ideas that could inspire others to resist. They had warned the Empire to run. The Empire should have listened.